Hello Stampers! Thanks for joining me today. I have a card here that's a lot of fun to make, and we're going to be using the negative circle space to create a nice sun that has a couple different colors in it. And I'm going to be using the stamp set Treasured Kindness for our tree. This tree has multi-steps to it, and it's a lot of fun to use. So we're going to be using that tree, and I decided to team it up with the Heron Habitat Bundle. And this stamp set here, we're going to be using a couple images out of it. And also, we're going to be using one of the dies that coordinate with the set. We're going to be using this grassy one here. This is a great die set. It's a lot of fun to use along with that stamp set, so bundle that up and save some money on that one. So we're going to start with a 3 3/4 inch square piece of basic white. You can get all the dimensions as usual down below this video. Just click show more and you'll see them there listed with all the product links also. So here we go. Again, this is a 3 3/4 inch basic white square. And I took a, this is one I used previously for my sample card. So I just die cut out of a scrap piece of cardstock a 2.5 inch circle, and I used the circle layering dies for that and the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. But you could use a 2.5 inch punch or the 2.5 inch die. So we're going to be using the negative space. So when you cut this out, make sure you have a piece of cardstock big enough to leave some edges around, and that helps protect your cardstock from the ink. So when we put this on our cardstock, we want it pretty high up on the card. So I have this turned to the side. It's just easier to work with. I'm going to take a Mango Melody ink pad, and I'm going to use just the short edge here, and I'm going to make lines across the cardstock here, and just fill in the majority of this circle shape. So when you do this, you want to make sure you're holding your paper down firmly so it doesn't move. And it helps if you go bring some in from the right side and you bring some in from the left side. And that's going to help you fill in that entire circle. Otherwise you might have one side lighter than the other. So that was Mango Melody. And then we're going to bring in a little Cajun Craze. We're going to do that same thing. We're going to use the short edge here. And we're just going to add some lines going across. And again, I'm going to bring some in from the right and some in from the left. And we get this great looking sun here with little effort. And there is our sun, and it's just so cool looking. Okay, next we're going to stamp our tree, and we're going to start with Memento Tuxedo black ink. And we're going to start with the big piece of tree trunk. This has all of the trunk on here and a piece of cat hair. Sadie's decided to stick to my stamps. Okay, so I'm going to use the tree here, and I want this tree trunk to be just below the sun, the very base of it. See how high up that is? It's just barely below the sun shape. Okay, so our next step, we're going to use, it has a piece of the tree trunk here, and this is a solid looking one, and now you could use a different color, but I wanted my tree trunk to all be really dark, so I'm staying with that tuxedo black ink. And then you're just going to line it up and stamp it over the tree trunk you already put on there. There you go. So now we have that nice wide dark tree trunk going on. And I'm going to put this ink up just for a moment. And we're going to bring in Mossy Meadow. And I'm going to use this is the solid leaves for our tree. So you'll see there's a detailed stamp and then there's a solid one. We're using the solid one with the Mossy Meadow ink. Stamping it on there, and then I'm going to line it up so they're just on top of those branches that are sticking out to hold them. Here we go. There's that part. Isn't this neat how this tree comes together? It's great. Okay, so that was Mossy Meadow. And I'm going to go back to that tuxedo black. And we're going to use the detailed leaf stamp. And when I stamp this, I want to stamp it just a hair lower than the Mossy Meadow leaves. And this gives you some really nice shading for the Mossy Meadow leaves. There we go. So those are all shaded in, just that simple. I love this stamp set, so easy to use. Okay, so there's our tree all stamped in. Let's put some birds in the sky. Now I brought the birds in, and it's in this Heron Habitat stamp set. And I'm also going to use the Enjoy Your Day sentiment for this. So I'm going to stamp my birds first here. And I'm using that tuxedo black again. There we go. Need a couple birds flying around, don't we? And then I'm going to add my sentiment to the bottom of this cardstock. Again, I'm using that tuxedo black, and I'm just going to put it down here in the bottom corner. So enjoy your day. That's a great sentiment. All right. Oh, before we put that black up, I've got a piece of sponge here, and I'm going to pounce it in my ink. And I have the sponge kind of squeezed here at the edge. I'm pouncing it in the ink, and I'm holding it kind of tight. And I'm going to pounce it along to create some grass here on our ground. There we go. And I left it kind of open, so I didn't go from edge to edge. All right, so we have that done. And now I'm going to take some Sahara Sand and a blending brush. And I'm going to blend this color on the edge all the way around. That brings in that Sahara Sand color that we're going to have in our background panels. That ties things together. And then you don't have that stark white background. There we go. Next, I'm going to take a white gel pen, and I just want to add some highlights in the tops of our trees here. Just along the tops of each section, I'm adding just a few dots. These are just little highlights for our little leaves that the sun is reflecting off of. And then I'm going to bring it down. And I'm kind of doing a scratchy motion. I'm just bringing it down the side of that tree trunk there. And then I'm going to add just a few dots in this ground area, like little groups of flowers. There we go. And that's it for our highlighting. Just add some sparkle. All right, so now we're ready to start putting this card together. And I'm going to show you these dies that I did. So this is this grassy die that we used. And it's out of the Heron dies. And I die cut it out of Old Olive and Basic Black using the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And I'm going to layer these up. And when you layer them up, we're going to put the black on top of the Old Olive. I'm going to get my trusty multi-purpose glue out here. And I'm just going to put a little glue on it. I don't want much, just a hair. Just enough to hold these together just a bit. And when I put them together, I want the Old Olive to be showing on the right side of the black, because the sun will be shining in this way. So now we have our leaves all highlighted in that green with just hardly no effort at all. All right, so that's ready. So I'm going to adhere my 3 3/4 main panel here to a 4-inch panel of Basic Black. Center that up there, and then we're going to add our grasses. So again, you don't need much glue for this. I very lightly put it on. Whoa, didn't mean to do that. Okay. So that's going to just go down here in this bottom left corner. See how that automatically gives you depth in your scene, because you have this in the foreground and then you see that tree in the background. Without that there, it seems very flat, but you add that on and you can see a lot of depth. Okay. So next we're going to take a panel of Sahara Sand, and I'm going to add some ribbon to it. And I'm going to use ribbon out of the Old Olive and Sahara Sand Twill Ribbon Combo Pack. And so I'm going to use this Sahara Sand ribbon. I'm just going to add a piece down the middle of this cardstock here. This cardstock is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I'm going to adhere the ends to the back of this panel using a mini glue dot for each side. Here we go. And there is our ribbon on. And then I have a Sahara Sand card base that's 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, and then I folded it in half to create my quarter card. And inside I have a 4 by 5.25 piece of Basic Black, and then a 3 3/4 by 5 piece of Mango Melody. And that ties it into your front with the Mango Melody we used there. Okay, so we're going to adhere this to the front of the card. It's the same size as the front of the card. And that's just how you get around not showing your ribbon ends on the inside of your card, or wrapping it around your entire card, is to put a piece of cardstock on the front that is the same size as your card base. So there, I have that on. And now I'm going to add my main panel here, and I'm going to have it over towards the right side, so it's shifted over so we have room for our bow. And I'm going to use Stampin' Dimensionals for this. And I'm going to use 9 dimensionals. I use plenty of dimensionals. You know, they're cheap. And the last thing you want to do is put a bunch of effort into a card and then have it arrive to somebody and it's caved in the center or it's not stuck on correctly. So don't skimp on the dimensionals. Here we go. So I'm just going to put this over to the right side, and I kind of just lay it on there and give it a look and see if I like how I have it on, and then I can adjust it just a little bit if I need to. There we go. And now I just want to put a piece of ribbon on there for a bow. And I'm taking a piece of that same ribbon and I'm running it underneath the piece that we already have attached to our card. And I'm creating a bow. And before I tighten my loops, I like to get the legs, is what I call them, for the bow straight to where I want them, so they're not going to the wrong side. And then I tighten it, and then I just trim these up to where I want them. There we go. And there is our card for today, all complete. I hope you enjoy this project and that you give it a go. I'm sure you're going to have lots of fun making it. Thanks for joining me. Bye.